So, whatever happened to that classic sci-fi, at the time, big-budget outer space spectacle from 1955, This Island Earth? Let's find out.
Movies, music, and monsters. Danger, danger.
Hey, my friends, Dan Monroe here, talking about movies, music, and monsters. Oh boy, This Island Earth. Certainly not a film that I saw upon its initial release, since I wasn't born until 13 years later, but I do remember seeing it most likely in black and white on a little 12-inch TV screen, probably in the mid to late 1970s, but I specifically remember the super cool special effects, and believe me, for 1955, these effects were really super cool, and of course, the giant mutant with the oversized head that absolutely scared the living crap out of me at 9 years old, I can tell you that. Certainly a very beloved classic sci-fi film that, in my opinion, still holds up really pretty good today if you sit down and watch it with the intent of understanding that, again, this was 1955. So, grab your intergalactic interocitor and your alien mutant monster with a bucket of stale popcorn and let's dive in.
Where am I?
New York?
I kind of expected Neptune.
This Island Earth was an American science fiction film with elements of horror sprinkled in on top for good measure, directed by Joseph M. Newman and Jack Arnold, and distributed by Universal International in 1955. I recently rewatched this film, a short film, only 1 hour and 25 minutes long, and it's almost as if this film is split right down the middle into two different parts, with the first part being an extremely well thought out, scientifically based sci-fi drama, which was very reminiscent of the slow paced, dialogue heavy scripts of both Forbidden Planet and The Day the Earth Stood Still. But then the second half takes a huge, extremely colorful leap into bizarre alien worlds with psychedelic colors and monsters. Almost in a way reminds me of something you would have seen in the third season of Lost in Space. But that being said, the expansiveness of the worlds in this film is truly unbelievable, slightly creepy, but also in a strange way, kind of beautiful. The use of matte paintings throughout the course of the second half of this film are really some of the best I've seen, especially when they incorporate the live action into them. And okay, sure, by today's standards, you might just think this looks kind of cheesy, but keep in mind this was freaking 1955, and for the day this was super impressive, some people claiming that it might just have been the Star Wars of its time. Now, for those of you who have never seen This Island Earth, it's basically the story of the world's greatest earthbound scientists recruited by a technologically advanced alien civilization to help them fight a horrifying enemy from another world. Dr. Carl Meacham, after having been given instructions to build some weird electronic contraption, which actually ends up being an intergalactic communication device, along with his female love interest, Dr. Ruth Adams, are transported to a strange new alien world, which just happens to be on the verge of destruction due to the invasion of a hostile alien race called the Zagons, which we never even see in the film.
Wow, seems like there's quite a bit going on here.
Well, yes and no. They spend 3/4 of the film getting to this alien world, really only to just immediately turn around and head right back to Earth, not accomplishing anything whatsoever or making any real difference at all. The aliens who recruited them didn't get what they needed, and then at the end of the film, they finally get back to Earth, and the last alien just crashes into the ocean and dies.
Warning, warning, spoiler alert.
Okay, sorry, but when you think about it on a pure story level, it's fascinating. But when you look at it on the basis of the final outcome of the story, the whole thing really seems quite unnecessary.
You're overanalyzing. Just sit back and enjoy some good 1950s sci-fi.
You're right. Now, the film was based off a novel of the same name in 1952 by author Raymond F. Jones, and principal photography for this Island Earth took place from January 30th until March 22nd, 1954, with most of the on-location filming taking place at Mount Wilson, California, and the entire production, get this, taking over 2.5 years to complete. Okay, let's be honest, we're all getting older, even though we all fight like heck to try to remain young and vibrant. Old Father Time definitely seems to be creeping his way into all our lives, and one thing I've definitely noticed, even though I'm obviously still in my late 20s, anything I can do to help me feel better can only be a good thing. As I've mentioned before, I never promote things on my channel that I don't personally use every day, and that definitely goes for today's sponsor, AG1, which is really more than just greens. It's literally your daily drinkable scoop of vitamins, minerals, and extremely important probiotics for your gut that helps not only your whole body, but your brain. One thing I absolutely love is the immediate feeling of energy, a boost that I get as soon as I drink it, which pretty much keeps me boosted all day. Just one scoop of AG1, drop it in cold water, mix it up, drink it down, and bingo, you're done. But don't take my word for it. You can get started with AG1 for less than $3 a day. I mean, think about that. It's less than the cost of 1 cup of coffee. You also get $76 of free extras, including 5 AG1 travel packs, a super cool shaker bottle, and a bottle of vitamin D3 plus K2 with your first purchase. Simply head over to the link in my description, or better yet, just scan this here QR code and literally start feeling better today. And now, back to the show. Now, even though director Joseph M. Newman shot a majority of the film, Universal Studios was pretty upset and dissatisfied with a lot of his work, so they brought in director Jack Arnold to reshoot all the scenes on Metaluna, and for a very good reason. Jack Arnold just happened to be one of the greatest directors of sci-fi monster movies in the 1950s, including titles like It Came from Outer Space, The Incredible Shrinking Man, and Creature from the Black Lagoon. I could never help but think maybe, just maybe, this is where Irwin Allen got his idea for the freezing tubes on Lost in Space. With the extreme popularity of 20th Century Fox's CinemaScope, along with other widescreen processes in the early 1950s, Universal Pictures went ahead to develop their own widescreen technology, which wouldn't really become perfected until around 1956, but in essence it meant that the film would be shot at full frame, square, but carefully composed and photographed so that the film could be released either way, square or widescreen, basically allowing the theater to decide which version they wanted to show by simply matting out the top and the bottom of the projected image to produce the widescreen effect. Same film, 2 different formats. Kind of cool, and later on this process became known in the Hollywood industry as shooting in widescreen safe. It's interesting, a print of this film was actually loaned to MGM, who was, at the time, right in the middle of creating their own science fiction spectacle. I'm not really sure if you've ever heard of this film or not. It didn't do very well. It wasn't very influential. I think it was called Forbidden Planet. Many of the strange and unusual super cool sound effects used throughout the course of the film were actually mostly recordings of radio teletype transmissions picked up on shortwave radio, recorded and then played back at various different speeds. Super fun fact, the miniature of the planet Earth that was used in the special effects shots in the film was the exact same miniature used for the Universal Pictures fanfare opening from the 1950s through the late 1970s. Kinda cool. This movie also starred Russell Johnson as Dr. Steve Carlson, who most of you would know as the professor from Gilligan's Island. And then there's the mutant.
That thing always scared the crap out of my sensors, I can tell you that.
Yeah, me too. And the special effects team that created the mutant costume claimed that originally the costume had legs that was supposed to match the upper body section of the creature, but they had so many problems making the legs not only look good but work properly that they were finally forced by the studio deadline to simply give the mutant a regular pair of pants. However, that being said, some of the movie posters show the mutant as it was originally supposed to appear in the film. Really kinda strange, but when two of the main actors, Jeff Morrow and Rex Reason, were watching the film during the actual premiere, they literally wanted to get up out of the theater, leave their seats out of sheer embarrassment every time the mutant costume was on screen. As cool as it was, apparently they felt that the mutant, and I quote, completely ruined an otherwise decent film. Not sure if I really agree with that assessment, but hey, that's Hollywood. Fun fact, Dan Aykroyd himself stated that the big-headed aliens from the film were a direct inspiration for his Saturday Night Live creation of the Coneheads. This Island Earth was released in theaters in 1955 and was an enormous success at the box office, bringing in more than $1.5 million on a $800,000 budget, making it one of the most profitable films that year. In 1957, it was shown on a double bill with Invaders from Mars, and in the summer of 1960, it was re-released again to drive-in theaters on a double bill with Forbidden Planet, and holy Jiminy Christmas, wouldn't that have been super cool to see? It was also again released to theaters in July of 1964 with a gorgeous reissue of the original 1955 one-sheet poster. Okay, but what about all the super cool costumes, props, and sets from the film? Well, unfortunately, nothing whatsoever still exists, except, according to Hollywood rumors and legends, the original molds for the mutant's head were moved from Universal Studios in the 1960s to Don Post Studios, where they were used to create literally thousands of mutant masks that you could buy back in the day. And then, from what I understand, the molds were eventually simply worn out and discarded. However, that being said, as you know, the classic 1960s television show Lost in Space is one of my absolute favorite shows in the world, and I just knew that there was some connection between Lost in Space and this island Earth. Well, in the second season episode of Visit to Hades, look at what we got here. The head from the mutant of this island Earth, right there alongside our favorite Lost in Space characters. I mean, come on, how cool is that?
Not cool at all. I told you this ugly mutant thing scared the programming tapes out of me.
Now, even though it's not a screen-used mutant head, this is probably the next best thing. A rubber mask pulled directly from the original studio molds, professionally studio painted, and selling back in 2018 for over $1,600. And this is really super cool, an extremely rare large poster from This Island Earth. Only 2 copies known to exist, and this is one of them, selling back in 2011 for over $7,000.
Okay, but what about all the reboots, remakes, and God help us reimaginings?
Well, believe it or not, a sequel was planned way back in 1956, only 1 year after this film was released, when screenwriters Franklin Cohen and William Alland submitted a script called Aliens in the Skies to be shot in both Technicolor and CinemaScope, but the studio executives basically said, no way, forget it, it's just too gosh darned expensive.
God, studio executives.
This Island Earth was released on VHS, Betamax, and Laserdisc in the 1980s and 90s, DVD in 2007, and finally in 2019, Shout Factory released This Island Earth in both the square and widescreen aspect ratios directly from the 4K scans of the original interpositive source. Absolutely brilliant to see this classic film once again brought back to life after almost 70 years later. But guys, don't take my word for it. Check it out yourself. If you've never seen this film, well, it's certainly worth the 90 minutes, I can tell you that. And if you haven't seen this film in the past 20 years, pull it off the shelf and give it another look. It really does come across, still today, enormously entertaining, with a great sci-fi story and really cool early special effects. And even though the mutant monster is literally only in the film for about 2.5 minutes, it's a really great, fun piece of classic 1950s sci-fi to enjoy with your favorite bucket of stale popcorn. This Island Earth was not only a highly successful movie back in the day, but still fondly remembered by sci-fi enthusiasts and fans of the genre throughout the last 70 years, paving the way for other great sci-fi classic flicks in the 1960s, including The Time Machine, The Day the Earth Caught Fire, The Brain That Wouldn't Die, The Last Man on Earth, Frankenstein Meets the Space Monster, Journey to the Center of Time, and so many more. We could be here all day, but that, my friends, is the topic of another video. I really hope you guys enjoyed that deep dive all about This Island Earth, and if you did and you like this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing to the channel. I've got a whole bunch of new videos coming up really soon that I know you guys are just gonna dig.
And if you'd like to help support the channel, you can always buy us a coffee. Link in the description.
And please feel free to stop back anytime as we together continue the conversation on movies, music, and monsters.
Movies, music, and monsters.